there. Welcome back to Ask Amy. I have a question today from Becky. Becky says, I'm really struggling at the moment to see the climate crisis situation and how we're treating our planet. I'm so frustrated by the lack of action taken by our governments and big businesses to mitigate climate change and stop deforestation, pollution, etc. I feel heartbroken watching nature programs that show how species are in rapid decline and how so many animals are suffering because of ignorance and greed. It just feels overwhelming at times, and I'm quite surprised by the strength of my reaction, even though I've always felt strongly for the protection of wildlife. I do what I can by joining environmental groups, living a more eco-friendly life, lobbying, etc., but it doesn't feel like enough, and it all feels futile at times. I know my thinking around all of this is what is creating the feelings of overwhelm, but those thoughts look so true and factual. This stuff is really happening in the world, and I can't see how destroying our beautiful planet and causing unnecessary suffering to millions of animals isn't wrong or bad or upsetting. I'd absolutely love a new perspective on this and to be able to channel my passion for nature into something positive rather than getting so upset about it. So thank you, Becky, for sending this question, and you're absolutely not alone in this. As you know, I'm sure you know it is it's something that is really hard at times, really hard, like watching those programs and seeing what's happening and feeling like, gosh, this is big. And can any one person, can any small group really do anything? It can feel really hopeless. So just know, I know you feel plenty of that already, but obviously, we're human and we care about this stuff. And it's okay to feel the way you do, and maybe in some ways it's even kind of helpful in that it keeps it alive for you. Now, ideally, what would be amazing is just what you say, for this to be alive for you and for you to be able to take the actions that feel right and that are helpful, but from a place of less angst, less frustration and hopelessness, because as we all know, when we're coming at it from that way, we're just not, first we're just going to suffer, and that's going to naturally lead us away from those actions and away from everything, because no one wants to suffer. We're just designed to feel suffering and move in another direction, thankfully, right? So what we want is for you to be able to take these steps and express how passionate you are without the suffering around it. Now, you say that you know that it's your thinking creating this, but it's hard to see because these things look like true facts, and as far as we know from what the science tells us, they are true facts, right? There is stuff happening. But notice where, and we this is so hard for us to notice, probably impossible for us to notice, really, but we can see that there is this thing to notice. So what I mean is, notice where there's a fact, and there's a fact that doesn't feel good, like there's negative impact happening in the world and the planet because of all this, and where a mind will come in and take that fact and spin it into all kinds of other stuff. Now, when I say this is the thing to notice, and it's also kind of impossible for us to notice, we don't really see how our mind does this. I mean, a brain comes in, takes all across the board, across every topic in your life, takes little facts and figures, takes in some sensory information, takes in this opinion and that bit of science and this thought and that feeling, and just and extrapolates meaning and extrapolates future and all of that, like what's going to happen and what it all means, and adds in detail and adds in all the fear and all the stuff. That's just what a brain does. So you aren't going to get in there. I'm not going to get in there in our own heads and say, oh, okay, here's the fact. And now all this other bit over here that I'm really suffering around is the bit that my mind added in, the meaning and the therefore, and it means this and that's going to happen. Like, we don't see that line, we just don't. But we can know that that's happening. Like, that is a fact too. That is a scientific fact. We know that this is what a mind does. And Becky, that your feelings change everyone's feelings change much faster than the situation changes. So the situation is what it is, and you have moments where you're just devastated over it, and moments where it's not on your mind, and moments where it is on your mind, but you're a little less devastated. Maybe even moments where you see a little bit of hope. So it's like there's a circumstance, and there's the facts, and you're right, there's the facts, but there's thought and feeling doing this. And so again, that kind of shows us, oh, yes, there's something here for sure. And I'm glad you're passionate about it. I hope more people get passionate about it. But when we're in this, the thought and feeling, the story, the meaning, the therefore, all of that, as if this is the truth, it's a bumpy ride. And it's not great for the planet because if we were all, or any social issue, because if we're all in this all the time, we're so emotional. We're all about right and wrong. And, it's just, it's hard to see beyond our own thinking when we're in this. But when we can stay in this and see this for what it is, there's like a sweet spot there. So, meaning when you can say, hey, there's not good stuff happening on our planet, we need to make some changes, period. And you can see, okay, and my experience of that, my mind makes that horrible and maybe a little hopeful and totally hopeless, and my experience will take it all over the place. But this is what it remains. This is where I want to camp out. I don't know what's going to happen. We don't know who's going to, what gigantic forces are going to come together in the next months or years and start doing things right and turn this around. I mean, what if that happened? What if things started to dramatically turn around in the near future and we spent all this time worrying and hopeless about it? Now, again, you're human, so we're going to be in that. But I just say that to kind of pull this apart a little bit. There's the fact of it, which we need to know, and it can fuel us and move us into action. And there's all the story and the fears and all of that, which we're going to feel because we're human. But the more we can see that this part's happening and that's what's getting us all caught up, the more we're naturally able to kind of, I guess, just subtract it out of our experience in a sense. We still experience it, but we notice, you notice when you are feeling really righteous about it or really angry, and you get a little more suspicious. Like the fact is the fact. The drama and emotion are the drama and the emotion. I think about just big things like this and how anything, major things, like this are going to ever change. And if you think about it, we're seeing this with race relations, with so many things, right? Climate crisis, everything. That when humans are in this, all we can see, you have to love us. We're passionate and we care and we really believe in what we feel is right, But when we're in the drama of it and the passion of it, all we can see is kind of like right and wrong. And it's really, really hard. It's just not even going to be natural or occur to us that much to want to hear another side. Now, when we're in a little more calm state of mind, we can get curious about, to use your example, some of these huge businesses that are ignoring the science, that aren't taking steps, that like, why? Why? Now, I'm not suggesting you, Becky, you're going to go knock on the CEO's door and ask him or her why, but you might at some point, but as a society, this is what we need to do. Like, why do you not see this as an issue if the science says that it is? How is it that you don't see systemic racism if all these other people do? What's going on there? And that's where we get an in to listen. But if we're so caught up in our own emotions, we're never going to look at someone and say, why? We're going to look at someone and say, you're wrong and I'm right. And you should have got this right a long time ago. And, it's just not going to lead for any kind of listening. So again, I'm not saying putting this on you, Becky, but just saying in the bigger picture, I think this is exactly what we all need, is to be able to see, yes, there's issues. And yes, our mind creates a whole roller coaster experience of those issues. But when I can see that that's going on, I get to stick here a little more. And when I'm sticking here a little more, I'm less in right and wrong, good and bad. and I'm more in curiosity, and I'm more in listening. And if leaders and people were doing this more, curiosity and listening and being curious about why people don't believe in certain things or whatever, why they have the practices they have, man, what an in that would be to actually have a conversation and explore some things that make a difference. So I hope this is helpful, Becky. Thank you for sending your question. Again, I know this one is relates to for a lot of people. It's a big issue for all of us, I think, in our own way. So thanks for sending it. I hope it's helpful. Send your questions, everyone, to askamy@thelittleschoolofbigchange.com, and I'll be here every Monday to speak to them. Have a great week, everyone.